A ceasefire appears to have taken hold between Israel and the Islamist Palestinian factions in the Gaza Strip after 24 hours of severe hostilities. Tensions rapidly escalated yesterday after Haider Adnan, an incarcerated leader of the Iranian proxy Palestinian Islamic Jihad, evidently died in an Israeli prison after an 86-day hunger strike. Upon receiving the news of Adnan's death, the Iranian proxy Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a designated terror organization which is listed by the European Union, UK, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Japan, the United States, and Israel, pledged to exercise revenge against the Jewish state regarding the suicide.
The occupation bears full responsibility, and we will carry out our role in confronting those crimes.
During the early hours of yesterday morning, 3 rockets were initially launched toward Israel's southern communities. As a result, at approximately 3:15 p.m., IDF tanks opened retaliatory fire toward observation posts along the Gaza-Israel border, while in tandem, the IDF spokesperson's unit instructed residents of the town of Sderot and Gaza periphery communities to remain near protected bomb shelters. Roughly 15 minutes thereafter, at 36 minutes after 3, Palestinian militants launched a total of 22 rockets from the Gaza Strip toward Israeli territory. While 4 incoming projectiles were successfully intercepted, 2 rockets managed to penetrate Israel's aerial defense array, exploding near residential structures, while 16 rockets exploded in uninhabited areas.
I went out with my son to the supermarket area and received messages that residents of the areas surrounding Gaza should be close to fortified rooms. I realized something was going to happen, so I packed everything, took my child, and on my way home, we didn't hear the sirens. We heard explosions and then the sirens. On the way, we got nervous. My son ducked and I embraced him to protect him. During this time, I didn't know where to go. I saw that the rocket fell here. I saw how it fell. First the rocket came, then we heard sirens. You don't even have time to run to the fortified room. I have been in Sderot for 30 years. 21 years I remember experiencing rockets. I don't believe this will be resolved. The solution is to wipe out all of Gaza, to wipe out all of Palestine. This is the only solution.
At approximately 12 minutes after 8 p.m., rocket alert sirens sounded once more throughout southern Israel, forcing roughly 200,000 Israelis into bomb shelters within the IDF Home Front Command's instructed 15 seconds. In tandem, Palestinian residents of Gaza, fearing Israel's response to sporadic rocket fire that persisted during the successive hours, sought shelter in their respective homes.
As you can see, the situation is very bad. There are airstrikes and people are scared. We are shop owners and all shops are closed. The whole country is closed. I usually leave at midnight, but today we closed our shops at around 9 or 8 as a result of the tension in the country.
While the Palestinian terror groups continued to indiscriminately launch rockets toward Israel's southern communities, at 4 minutes after 11 p.m., IDF fighter jets launched a wave of aerial strikes against military infrastructure belonging to the Islamist Hamas organization. Among others, a military post, weapons storage facility, weapon manufacturing site, and a training facility were completely destroyed. In tandem, 2 weapon manufacturing sites belonging to the weapon production headquarters of Hamas, alongside other sites that are utilized for the construction of subterranean infrastructure, including an underground terror tunnel in the southern Gaza Strip, were struck as well. Meanwhile, the Islamist Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad ratcheted up their rocket fire toward Israel, with several dozens of rockets launched toward Israel's southern civilian communities. Consequently, at 14 minutes after 2 a.m., IDF fighter jets and helicopters struck a military compound that served as a training camp for the operatives of the production line of the Islamist Hamas organization, as well as a weapons warehouse and 2 military compounds which also belong to Hamas. Moreover, additional subterranean infrastructure alongside naval outposts were also subject to aerial attacks. Meanwhile, following extensive back-channel negotiations via Egyptian mediation, the Palestinian terror groups in Gaza relayed to Israel their keen interest to reinstate a ceasefire. Consequently, at 10 minutes before 4 a.m. this morning, Egyptian television networks cited Egyptian intelligence sources as confirming that a ceasefire has been agreed upon and that it was due to go into effect at 4 a.m. And while military officials confirmed to TV7 that Israel would uphold to the Egyptian brokered arrangement, merely 2 minutes after 4 a.m., Palestinian Islamists launched a barrage of rockets toward Khof Ashkelon Regional Council, where one projectile exploded in a courtyard outside of a private residence. Thankfully, no injuries were reported despite heavy damage to the residential structure. Subsequently, at approximately 5:26 a.m., another single rocket was fired toward the Gaza periphery communities in Israel. Nevertheless, it exploded in an uninhabited area, and no injuries were thankfully reported. Subsequently, the IDF Home Front Command announced that civilians in Israel could go about their daily affairs normally today and that schools would be open, signaling confidence that the ceasefire would indeed hold. All in all, over 104 rockets and mortar shells were fired out of the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip since the first barrage yesterday morning until the last rocket earlier today. And while the majority of the incoming projectiles were either intercepted by Israel's aerial defense array or landed in uninhabited areas, 5 rockets exploded in populated zones, including one projectile that struck the town of Sderot at a construction site, where, as a result, 3 foreign nationals from China sustained injuries. They were evacuated to nearby hospitals, where one was diagnosed in moderate condition, while the 2 others were treated for light injuries. In contrast, IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Agari noted that in 2 attack waves, the IDF struck 16 targets belonging to the Islamist Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad organizations. Nevertheless, there were apparently no Palestinian casualties in any of the Israeli strikes. Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesman Vedant Patel was asked by a Palestinian reporter whether the Biden administration had any view on the death of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad operative Adnan Hader, who was referred to by the reporter as a Palestinian political prisoner rather than a terrorist for which he was apprehended.
Our view is that we have a deep respect for human rights and believe that all individuals, including prisoners, should be treated humanely. What I will also note, Saeed, is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is a designated foreign terrorist organization. And as we have seen with today's rocket attacks, this group continues to advance violence.
Similar to the U.S. position, the European Union's Foreign Affairs and Security Policy spokesman, Peter Stano, pointed to the fact that Hader Adnan, who effectively committed suicide by starving himself,
we take note of the death of Mr. Adnan in the Israeli prison, and he was protesting his indictment for incitement and affiliation with Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is a terrorist organization. But he argued that this was based on an unfounded evidence.